Nice. Welcome back to the Life on Books podcast. I am your host, Tony. With me, as always, is Andy, a.k.a. Metafictional Meathead.
Good morning, Tony.
Good morning. Is it still morning? Yeah, it is. 10 a.m.
It's 10 o'clock.
I've been up since 6, so. Oof. Yeah. Today we're talking about books.
What else is new?
Yep.
Today we're going to talk about a book we've never read before.
Correct.
What could go wrong?
So we are going to announce our first pick for our Life on Books book club. We have a Discord server coming.
It's already up.
You can join it. The link will be below wherever you're listening or watching. So we'll start talking about what we've been reading recently. And you've been on a tear, so why don't you kick things off?
Yeah, it occurred to me just the other day that I've read, start to finish, 11 books in like 6 or 7 weeks.
Fantastic.
Which kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah. Not that it's about how many you read.
Right. Correct. No, certainly not about the quality, excuse me. But having got off to a very slow start this year, it's been nice to, bang out a bunch of books and kind of look at I haven't really been tracking what I've been reading. I didn't set up a reading goal or anything for the year.
Yeah.
Last year on Goodreads, I just set my reading goal to one book for the year, mostly so I could get the live tracker.
Yeah.
Because their app is stupid, and if you don't set a reading goal, it doesn't actually show you a live count of what you've been reading.
Yeah.
And even not focusing on quantity last year, I would still kind of check that tracker and be like, oh, I'm up to 25 books. And then, I'm at 75. I could read 100 this year, So I just kind of was like, you know what? I'm not going to set anything. I'm just going to read and be pleasantly surprised at the end of the year when, I do my year-end recap and it tells me how many I've read.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I'll kind of... So I'm going to pull up my Goodreads now so I can keep track of them all. Some of them I had already talked about in episodes we've recorded that haven't come out yet. But I'm
woefully behind.
I had been reading that book, Tell Them of Battles, Kings and Elephants by Matthias and Enard, which was really interesting, really cool little book. It's about Michelangelo visiting Constantinople.
It's fiction.
Yes. He did actually go to Constantinople.
Sure.
It is based off historical stories, I guess, or a historical event, but it's a fictionalized telling of his time there. I read The Passion According to GH by Lispector. Lispector's awesome. That's a really great book. Very weird and interesting. I read Oblivion by David Foster Wallace, which is just bleak as hell, but really poignant and thoughtful. Really interesting.
Is that the collection of short stories?
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Yes. I grabbed a copy. After finishing that, I had to grab a copy of the actual book form of This Is Water. It's just basically like a transcript of the This Is Water speech he gave.
Yeah. Was it a commencement speech?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. At Kenyon College.
Gotcha.
I forget the year, but it's a really, really great book, or a great speech, and really, profound and thoughtful. I read Speedboat by Renata Adler, which was a favorite of DFW's. He actually taught it. It was one of the books he used when he was teaching one of his courses at Sonoma College. It was a favorite of our friend of the program, Asker David Johnson. So after finishing it, can definitely see why. I read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I kind of felt like out of nowhere, I just felt the urge to read some Stoic.
Oh, I wish I had known you were doing that because I recently was gifted a copy. I should remember who the publishing company is, but they said, "Oh, we have this new edition. Do you want a copy?" And I was like, "Sure."
Oh, cool.
They just sent it to me.
I mean, it's definitely something that I would revisit again if you felt inclined to pick it up, and it wasn't like a difficult read. It's
Sure. It's not narrative based. It's
right.
Kind of like a good thing to revisit to just remind yourself of some of the principles.
Yeah. I certainly marked a lot of it, and
not to interject too much here while you're recapping, but it's funny because that is one of the books that self-help bros love to
Yes.
talk about. And I've made a bunch of content recently kind of being like, I shy away from popular books because I'm a little bit of a book snob. And like, that's a book I definitely shy away from, not necessarily because it's popular, but because it's popular with that segment.
Right.
And I don't want to say against personal development. I just think people obsess over it. And it's like, it's okay to just be who you are.
Right.
You know, like you're not inherently flawed and need to constantly remodel yourself. Like, and so I definitely kind of push back against that culture, but I have heard like it is legitimately like a very insightful book.
Yes, it is for sure. And it's funny you say that because I had like sort of like trepidation ordering it and reading it for like that exact reason. Like I think you see like all of these memes of like, your lit bro who like throws a copy of Infinite Jest or Ulysses or Moby Dick or whatever on his bookshelf, or to try and seem smart and appease somebody. And like, I don't really care about that because those are the types of books that I read. But like, I sort of felt like that, like,
yeah, it's a stereotype.
Yeah. And I was like, I hope I don't fall into this, but like being in the kind of transitory period of my life that I am, I was like,
sure,
this could be good. This could be insightful. And there's definitely a lot of things in there that I think are good takeaways. And like I just said, certainly lots to revisit. And I definitely marked up a lot of it. And there's good passages that I think I will go back to and kind of help align where I'm going next.
I think it's a big book in like the jiu-jitsu community too.
Yes.
Because it is a lot about like he's known for like being a famous war guy, general or whatever, leading armies and stuff. Was he the burn the ships guy?
No.
Okay.
That guy was Greek.
Okay. I forget.
I don't remember his name. But
so we used to the person who we're talking about will never hear this, so I'll talk about it. But I had a group of friends, and there was a young lady in that group who started dating a Herbalife guy.
Okay.
Multi-level marketing scheme. And he was putting out all this really cringy motivational content. And this was 2015, maybe even earlier. So like before it became like what it is now. You just didn't see a lot of stuff like that. And he would wear like polo shirts with a popped collar and sunglasses and like the gelled hair and super, super fake tan. And like he was, people joke about, people in their mom's basement. Like that's literally where this dude was making videos. It's like in a basement.
Yeah.
Probably not his own. You know what I mean? And he made a video about like, burn the ships, and we used to just make fun of that so bad. And like it's just one of those things where I get it in the context of when that happened, but it's like, dude, your life, you literally huck supplements. Like life in the 21st century is not that serious, bro. Like
it's like that guy, I think his name is Andy Elliott. He's like a sales guru or whatever. And I see all his like reels every now and then, and it's like, you got to pretend that your family is being kidnapped and they're not. It's like, relax.
I mean, it's not even worth knowing the guy's name because the Andy Elliott guy, because there's dozens of them,
right?
Grant Cardones and wannabe Grant Cardones, and there's some dude that's like, I wake up at 4 a.m. every day. I put a book on, audiobook double speed.
Yeah.
While I walk on a treadmill, and then my wife and I do some like bonding thing, and it was just like
that guy's insane.
Yeah, it's
that
just
guy's
like
insane.
Get real. So anyway,
yeah, definitely a great book, but not one I think I'm going to be basing my personality around.
Perfect.
Or at least we'll be wary of.
Yeah, take what's useful to you and just move on.
Yeah. I think it's funny, while I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is cool. This is a good quote. This is a good quote. And I was like, I caught myself like searching for like a Google image of like him and that quote so I could like post it. And I was like, Andrew.
Dude, if you had posted, like if I just saw a post from you with a Marcus Aurelius quote, I would probably call you to see if you were like, okay.
Yeah.
You know
And
what
that's
I
why I
mean?
was like, I like caught myself. I was like, stop it. Stop it right now.
Yeah.
You're like,
I mean, posing quotes is cool, but I just, that would be a little surprising, I guess.
it's like you're sitting in the car on your lunch break with the AC running, like,
yeah.
relax.
Yeah.
So self-reflection is an important
Yeah.
lesson.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then I recently finished a couple of big ass books as well. The Instructions by Adam Levin, which was a fantastic novel. It was actually his debut novel.
Cool.
Kind of crazy dropping 1,000-pager to announce your presence to the literary world. But
2012, right? 2013?
2010.
Okay. Yep.
2010. Just a really great novel. Really fun. Like I think I said in one of the unreleased episodes, reminded me a lot of Infinite Jest and JR by Gaddis. So
Cool.
and then I also finished The Mystery Doc by Mathew McIntosh, which was a really interesting, you can rightfully call it a novel, but really interesting book. It is a very loose, thin narrative in there. It is not kind of the main piece of it. It's kind of follows this writer who was like in the process of writing his next book. It's a follow-up to a novel he had written that wasn't very popular, but the people that did read it really liked it. And he's been working on this like follow-up for over a decade, and he wakes up one day with amnesia. Just doesn't remember who he is, anything about his life. Doesn't know anything about this book that he's writing. But kind of the main concern of the book is post 9/11 life in America.
Oh, cool.
And, there's just lots of like random, it'd be like snippets of like, that like early internet days where like people would log on and I think now like everyone is so accustomed to like you log into a website and the little chat box, pops up like, how can I help you? Like, what can I do for you?
Yep.
And so there's like, but that was such a foreign concept at the time the book came out. And so there's like snippets of those types of conversations that's in there a lot. And the like user being very like skeptical of whether it's a real person they're talking to or like a computer generated thing.
Right. The Turing test, like we talked about with Dr. Cock. Yeah.
Right. And, so that's kind of funny. And there's just structurally, it's a very, I guess, playful book. There's sections where there's just like blank pages, like 20 pages in a row. Text will be redacted. So you'll just, turn the next page and you'll have like one sentence at the top and then everything else is just blacked out.
Yeah.
There's like stills from movies and TV and
Are they color or black and white?
both.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Same thing, pictures. Some of them, photos, black and white or color. And kind of a weird one to like wrap your head around. I posted a review yesterday, but I think if you like go into it expecting like a true novel, you're gonna hate it. Like you're not gonna get very far before you're like, this is stupid. I'm done. But if you just kind of go in like, I'm gonna see what this is all about, like I think there's something to be enjoyed there.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I don't think you can really formulate like a true review because like there were times where I was reading it where I was like, this is so stupid. Like,
Right.
and then there were other times where I was like, this is awesome. Like this, there's really a lot going on here. I kind of joked in my review that, or I had messaged you like at one point, like it's going to be a cheat code for the end of year page count.
Yeah, because you said there's really only about like 300 to 400 pages of actual novel.
Give or take, yeah. Like, but it's almost a 1,700 page book.
Right.
And I was joking in my review, like you can just mindlessly read 200 pages and, a third of that might be pictures, or blank pages or pages with only a single sentence on it. And and I joked like, I'm not convinced yet that like just mindlessly reading a few hundred pages in like half an hour isn't the point of the book.
Right.
Like,
right.
It's kind of this like doom scrolling before doom scrolling was a thing.
Yeah.
Like if you think about it, like it's so easy to just like sit on the couch and get sucked into your phone, and half an hour goes by and you've watched how many dozens, if not over 100 reels or shorts or whatever.
Yeah.
And, maybe you've fired off a few to your friends, or maybe there's a couple you've saved because they're really funny or have something that you think will be helpful, down the road for whatever. But like, how many of those are just nothing burgers that you're not going to remember, you aren't going to see again, you're not going to like...
Yeah, well,
And I think it was almost kind of like that in book form before that was a thing.
Yeah, I heard a stat recently that the save function, like when you save a post on social media, all the platforms have their version of that. Like the actual amount of time people go back and look at it is like very low.
I'm sure.
So it's funny you said that.
From my own experience, like I know that. Like I've saved like little jiu-jitsu videos or like recipes or something like that, but
and 6 months later you're like, oh, what is this?
Right.
Oh, I saved this. Who cares?
Right. Or like almost the opposite. Sometimes I'll be like thinking about something like, oh, I think I saw that reel and saved it, and then I go back, I'm like, where is this? What happened?
Yeah. I mean, it could have been deleted, but who
Yeah.
knows? Yeah, that's interesting. Would you say it's like ergodic
Kind of, sort of.
fiction? Yeah.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, that's the fancy schmancy term for books that use weird formatting or style.
It's very
for-
the structure is very unique.
Yeah.
The only other book I've encountered with the structure like it is House of Leaves.
Yeah. Which I have zero interest in reading.
It wasn't a good book. I didn't like it. I think it's highly overrated. But
Yeah. It is one of those things, and you see it. I kind of feel like this happens in all different art mediums. It's like people, it kind of seems like a gimmick or a trick to cover up, like, I couldn't write a real book.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look, I haven't read House of Leaves, so I can't really say, but it just kind of screams like gimmicky to me. It's very similar, like comparing it to music, like Kiss, or Guar. Like they put on all these crazy suits and makeup and masks, and you're just kind of like, like the music's really not that good.
Yeah.
Like
I think I remember thinking when I read House of Leaves that like the structure was more interesting than the writing, and that's probably a problem.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
there's that book kind of has two main narratives, that the structural similarities, between that and Mystery Doc, or like I said, they're pretty similar, but House of Leaves definitely has more of a narrative, and there's two narrative threads in that, and I wish the book had focused more on one of them than the other.
Gotcha.
Because there's, the guy that's like moving into this house that's all weird and creepy. And then there's a guy years later that's reading an account of the people that lived in this house, and reading the account is kind of starting to like mess with him and affect his life. And I wish there was more about the people living in the house, because the guy like reading about it after the fact, like his story just kind of got whatever.
Yeah.
But
Interesting. Andy's hot take: House of Leaves, not good.
overrated,
Not
good at all.
Cool.
There's people that are like obsessed with that book.
Oh yeah.
There's like there's a whole subreddit about it, which there's subreddits about plenty of books. So like, but I've seen some of the snippet posts and things like that, and it's just like people are so obsessed with this book, and not to like badmouth any of them, but I don't understand it.
Yeah. Whatever. I mean, teach their own, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's not for me. But
No.
it's all right.
That's
Cool.
what it is. That's all I got. That's everything I've been reading.
Sweet. My list isn't nearly as long, so I recently finished Pachinko by Min Jin Lee, which, speaking of shying away from very popular books, that's probably on that list. I'd been aware of it for a while. It's about a subject, or takes place in a place that usually really piques my interest. So it's like from 1900 to 1980s Japan and Korea, which is definitely right in my wheelhouse. But it's a story about a family, which is like probably my least favorite topic. But what finally pushed me over the edge to read it was our friend John said the show was excellent.
I didn't know there was a show.
There's a show. I guess it's on Apple TV, which I don't have, unfortunately. But it has it stars one of the people that was in Shogun, the woman who played Mariko.
Oh.
And so I thought she was fantastic.
She was great in that, so I
Yeah.
think she was the high point of that show for me.
Yeah. And I have a thing about reading the book before I watch the show or movie, if possible. And I was like, well, it's a popular book, but whatever, I'll give it a go. And I really liked it. I mean, the writing was very simple, very plain. The writing wasn't bad. It just wasn't like literary and
Kind of matter of fact.
very matter of fact. But the storytelling was excellent. The character development was excellent. I know, you certainly don't gravitate towards books that are based on necessarily stories or characters. And I think I am that way to a lesser degree. I think what really made it enjoyable for me is that like all the political happenings of that time period in that area were a major theme and driver of the character's decisions. And because I am so interested in those things, that really made it a good fit for me. And it's like, because it spans multiple generations, I mean, she had a big challenge of needing to constantly bring in new characters and bring other characters out, which can be hard to do. And I think she did a great job of it, because normally if you kill off or phase out a character that you spend all this time making people care about, it can ruin your book.
Right.
It's like you have 200 pages left and this character that you were so invested in is now gone. So she did a good job of doing that. And it was just a solid book. I mean, nice. I think I would give it a 5 stars if it was a little bit more stylistically up my alley. But yeah, I could definitely see why someone would give it 5. I mean, I think I gave it 5 on Goodreads, but that's just because they don't have a 4.5.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd probably put it somewhere between 4 and 5. And then I picked up Tree of Smoke by Dennis Johnson, which you had started last year or the year before.
Yeah. I was like, I didn't dislike it, but I just wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't hitting for me. I think I mostly picked it up because it was right around when I had moved at the end of last summer. And it was like, I wanted to start something new, but didn't want to dig through all my boxes of unpacked books, and it was like right at the top of one of them.
I think if you get past the 100-page mark, you'll find it's an Andy book to me.
Yeah.
To me, it feels like something you would love.
Yes, your text that you had sent me. Let me see if I can find it, because that made me laugh a lot. Okay, you sent me. It checks a lot of Andy boxes: spooks, paranoia, nonlinear timeline, a bunch of bizarrely named characters, pedantic postmodern dialogue. No boner references yet, though.
Yeah, they're actually. I'm right around the 300-page mark, and there was a scene where there's a lot of phallic talk.
All right, I'm in.
It checks the boxes there.
I'm gonna start it when I get home.
It kind of it feels like Pynchon-esque without it feeling like it's a ripoff of Pynchon, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like, I would say the writing isn't like Pynchon, but it's very much like the same kind of like vibe.
Okay.
Like focusing on the same types of things.
Right.
If that makes, I don't know, it's hard to describe.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah.
You have a copy of Angels, right?
I do, but I haven't read it yet. But you really enjoyed.
I love that book. I think you would as well. That was actually one that I had thrown on the Google Doc of books I think we should read for the book club.
Yeah. I mean, based on where I'm at so far with Tree of Smoke, I wouldn't be opposed to reading another Dennis Johnson this year. Interestingly, the book is incredibly polarizing. So it won a bunch of awards, came out in like 2007 or 2010, somewhere around there. It won a bunch of...
It won the National Book Award.
Won the National Book Award. Like a bunch of publications said it's like one of the best books, like post-2000. But you go on Goodreads and you read some reviews, and there's like a lot of 1-star reviews. Like, what the hell is this? This book sucks. I don't understand what people like about it. And I think when I say it's like Pynchon-esque, I think it's because like Johnson does a really good job of kind of like making it seem like nothing's really going on, but you have to pay attention to certain things. Then you're like, that's going to come up later. This matters. And if you're just like reading it kind of in the sense of like, I'm just going to sit down and read a book about Vietnam, like you're going to miss what's going on.
Right.
And so, it's a lot of it's about the CIA. A lot of it's about like multiple people who work for the CIA and how, we might think they're on the same team, but they're really not. And they're kind of like trying to pull one over on each other. And it's good. I'm really enjoying it so far.
I had talked to someone about it. I don't remember if it was around when I had started reading it or just after I had finished Angels, and we were just kind of talking about Johnson. But that book came up, and whoever I was talking to kind of compared it winning the National Book Award to DiCaprio finally winning an Oscar for The Revenant. Like, not his best work. Like, he should have won it
for something else.
But
kind of feels like they were just, okay, we need to do it. So.
We should have done this before. Like, we're going to do it now.
One of the most popular reviews on Goodreads, it's quite long. It's a 1-star review. And the person was like, oh, Dennis Johnson must have read 10 steps on how to win a National Book Award or Pulitzer or something.
I think I've seen that review too.
And I was like, oh, that's not a real thing. And then he started going through the list, and I was like, oh, this is a real book that he's like referencing.
Yeah.
And then he gave examples of like how Tree of Smoke like fits all these like bullet points or check boxes, I guess. And it's fine for people to not like stuff. That is what it is. But I went and looked at like some of the guys' other reviews, and he like recently gave like a John Grisham novel like a 4-star, and I'm just like, okay,
that was a complaint I had seen about it a couple times, was that it formulaic is probably the wrong word, but it was kind of like you said, like checking boxes. Like,
even if that's the case, though, I feel like you would have to really go into it with that information like so fresh in your mind,
right?
And
I'm not giving. Obviously, I haven't read it, but I'm not going to give it that critique myself. But like, that's just something I'd seen.
It's I think it's kind of like what we've talked about before, which is like the difference between a good book and a great book is like the reader. And it's just like, okay, you didn't like it. It probably just wasn't for you.
Right.
But you can't say there's anything necessarily like bad about it. To me, I don't think there's anything that you're just like, this person is not a good writer, or they don't understand structure, like story structure or like character development. I think it's purposefully mundane in certain ways to trick you. But again, if you're paying attention, there's a lot going on under the surface.
Right.
That's how I feel about it so far.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll lose me in the second half of the book, but yeah. Anyway, so on to today's discussion.
Before we get on to the book, I forgot to mention, I also yesterday started reading The Garden by Aidan Scott, which is a recently published novel from Anxiety Press, I believe it is.
Great name.
It was a gift from our good friend, the Hudson Valley Book Nerd.
Cool.
Great so far. It is very reminiscent of Blood Meridian.
Oh, wow.
And I'm into it. So,
which I guess is officially going to be a movie.
Yeah.
So we should read that. I should read that.
That was, I believe, another book that I I put on my my Google Doc for books that we should read, and I definitely would like to revisit that because I've read it before, but I was a much different reader.
Yeah.
I don't think when I read it, I had the same appreciation for demanding fiction that I have now.
Sure.
So,
Be interesting to go look at it with your newfound chops.
yeah, totally.
Okay, so the big announcement is we are doing a book club. And we picked a book, and it is Hard Rain Falling by, what's this guy's name? Don Carpenter. I forgot for a second.
As you could tell, we're very excited about the book club.
Yeah, this is a NYRB Classics publication. I don't know if they call is it a Classics?
Yeah, NYRB Classic.
So this came out in, let's see here. We're going to tell you.
It was the 50s or 60s.
I believe it was the 60s. 1964 by Don Carpenter. And this is a tough-as-nails account of being down and out, but never down for good. A Dostoevskian tale of crime, punishment, and the pursuit of an ever-elusive redemption. The novel follows the adventures of Jack Levitt, an orphaned teenager living off of his wits in the Fleabag hotels and seedy pool halls of Portland, Oregon. Jack befriends Billy Lansing, a young black runaway and pool hustler extraordinaire. A heist gone wrong gets Jack sent to reform school, from which he emerges embittered by abuse and solitary confinement. In the meantime, Billy has joined the middle class, married, fathered a son, acquired a business and a mistress. Classic. But neither Jack nor Billy can escape their troubled pasts, and they will meet again in San Quentin before their strange double drama comes to a violent and revelatory end. It's kind of a lot of like spoilers, it feels like, in that synopsis.
A little bit.
But this book is, let's see here.
300 something pages.
It's not super long. 308 pages. It looks like the font is what I would call medium-sized, so not super small, not super large. I've never read anything by Don Carpenter. Have you?
No.
Yeah. I think what attracted me to this book is it's an NYRB. They rarely miss. It has this dope classic muscle car on the cover, which I don't even know. I'm not a big classic car guy. I don't know exactly what that is. Someone will probably shame me for not knowing that. And has a cool title. And I kind of love these like lesser known books that are, you know, Don Carpenter is probably a name that resonates with like people who are serious readers of literature and have read through like everything in the 20th century. But like the average person on the street's probably never heard of Don Carpenter.
Right.
I love books like that because sometimes it's kind of like the William Herrick, Love and Terror. It's like that was a solid book, but like no one's ever heard of that.
Right.
I love kind of those hidden gems. So the plan is you kind of laid out a structure for the book club. What's the plan?
So I counted the chapters or looked through. I believe, as far as I could tell, it is 26 chapters, book ended by a prologue and an epilogue, which brings us to a nice even 28.
Cool.
So I figure we do 7 chapters a week, spend about a month on it. We'll, like we said at the beginning, we'll have a Discord server. So we'll have a channel set up for just general book talking, and a channel specifically for the book club, where we'll post like discussion questions, or people can, you know, share thoughts, ask questions, whatever. And then we'll do probably a Zoom call about halfway through. You know, if anyone that wants to participate, we can, you know, talk a little bit more in depth about the book, and then we'll do another one of those at the end. And then, you and I can do a podcast and talk about the book.
Cool.
So
Yeah, so this is a little bit more planned out than the group read we attempted with Gravity's Rainbow.
that was a little bit. That was kind of unofficial. That was
It was like, hey, I'm going to read this if anyone wants to join in. Yeah.
Right.
And quite a few people actually showed interest, but then, Gravity's Rainbow is a difficult book.
for sure.
So it kind of fell apart. But this is going to be hopefully an official thing going on. I would like to do, maybe one book every month or every other month for like this kind of book club thing. Right now it's completely free. I know it's common for people to put like their book club behind a paywall on Patreon. We may do something like that in the future. I don't know. But for right now, anyone's welcome to join, completely free.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's a
Me too.
book I've been wanting to read.
Likewise, I recently someone I follow on Instagram recently read it, and seeing him post about it was really what spurred me to be like, oh, this should be our first pick.
Cool.
Because like when I remember a while back, I think it was after we had done an episode talking about the Sympathizer, when I was like, oh, we should, do more episodes like this where we just talk about a book. I like came up with a running list of books that I know you and I both have. And this was one of the ones that was on there. And then when we started to put together the book club plan was right around when I saw that person. I believe it was the Ghostly Fop. I follow him. Posting about it. I was like, yep, that should be our first pick. So,
Yeah, I mean, it has only 5,500 ratings on Goodreads, which is not many. Of those, though, it's been an average of 4.15 stars, so it's
pretty good.
Certainly a good rating. Not that
matters
to me too much. And let's read a quote. Let's find a quote here. Goodreads sucks so bad.
It does.
Between, there's just so much functionality that's missing on the app that you can only do things on the website and vice versa. It's very annoying, which I'm planning to remedy in the future with my own app.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. I'm currently putting together a pitch deck to source some investment money to get this thing underway. But I've already pitched the idea to two project managers who work in tech, and they're like, "This is a good idea. I can probably connect you with somebody that would fund this project." So
hell yeah,
that is the status of that. But
Life on Books is going global.
Well, I mean, it's like I could just be like, yeah, let me have a Patreon and let me make some merch and, have maybe do some sponsored posts. And that's cool, I guess, to go the typical Bookstagrammer route. But, I feel like I want to do something that has a bigger positive impact on reading than just that.
Right.
I think giving people a tool that's really made for them, and being an avid reader and communicating with other avid readers on a daily basis, I think I have a good handle on what's missing.
Yeah.
And some ways that, a product could fill the gaps. All night long in his cell, he burned with hatred. It did not matter what he thought, it was how he felt. And alone in the darkness of his cell, with the muttering noises of the tank around him, he felt like murdering the universe. All right, I'm in.
Yeah, that's sold.
Yeah, sounds pretty good.
So
yeah, and so I'm
gonna have to our plan. I don't think we said this. Our plan is to start.
Oh right, what's the start date?
May 19th. I believe that is a week. Yeah, today's the 12th, so we'll start May 19th. Sunday, May 19th. And I'm gonna have to fight myself to not start early.
Yeah, same. So yeah, give you guys some time to acquire the book from your local library, or purchase it, or borrow it from a friend, and or download it to your Kindle or whatever you like to use. And I think the plan will be, this particular channel on the server, if that's the correct lingo, will be for literature.
Yes.
So if you're interested in participating, you can be confident that if you make some best friends along the way here, you all can stick around to continue reading this type of book. We're not going to switch it up and do like a nonfiction or something next month. We may add additional channels to our Discord for those types of discussions. But at this point in time, I certainly do not have the bandwidth or resources to run multiple book club discussions. And so if somebody wants to participate in like that capacity, shoot me a message. I'm definitely open to that conversation. But between trying to make short form content and do the podcasts, and I'm trying to get back to some of that kind of like medium form content on YouTube, making some essays and stuff, running the book club, reading the books that I just want to read for my own pleasure. It's like running out of time and resources to do all of that. So this will be good. If there's any books that you want to add to our list that you want us to consider, I'm definitely open to that as well. And speaking of, people participating, we are still looking for writers for articles on the Life on Books website. Right now, that is not a paid thing. It's just if you like to read and you like to talk about the books that you read, going to give you another place to put that kind of content on the web. And then we'll promote your reviews through our social media channels. And so we have a couple people, we have about 20 people filled out the form, the application form, and I've emailed almost all of them, but I've only heard back from maybe 2 or 3 people that said that they're definitely in. But you can write about whatever you want. You can do single book reviews. You can do, lists like the 5 best, horror books of all time or whatever you want to talk about. You can talk about book news. The only thing we won't be publishing is like original works. So if you're writing poetry or short stories or novellas, like we're not going to be publishing people's artwork just because we would be completely inundated with people wanting to publish on our website. And I just don't have the time to go through all of it. And even if I said, we're just going to post everything that we get, like I just wouldn't even have the time to handle that.
Right.
So maybe somewhere down the line, we'll get into the digital publishing space, but I don't know. So yeah. And let's see, what do we want to give people maybe a little inkling of some of the other books on our list of potential book club candidates? You want to pull it up?
Sure. Yeah. While I'm pulling that up, I will just say, obviously we picked, you and I kind of made the joint decision of what to read for the first one. I think we'll probably do that for the next, few. Certainly want it will be I think once we get to a point where the structure and format is a little bit more secure and we kind of have a handle on how we're going to run it, it will be more of a, democratic process.
Vote.
Yeah. Whether it's
I'm open to like even on the next one, maybe just pick, you and I can pick 3.
That's kind of what I was thinking. You and I'll kind of pick a handful of books and then and put it up to a vote, and go from there. All right, so we got Hard Rain Falling. Some of the other ones I had on here: The Lime Twig by John Hawkes, Melancholy of Resistance by Krasna Horkai, Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor, Omensetter's Luck by William Gaddis, Angels by Dennis Johnson, The Crying of Lot 49 by Pynchon, Blood Meridian by McCarthy, Underworld or White Noise by DeLillo, Tinkers by Paul Harding. I put Speedboat by Renata Adler on here, Mumbo Jumbo by Ishmael Reed, some Borges. I know you don't have any Clarice Lispector books on your shelf, but I
always acquire them.
You can always acquire them. I think that would be great. Catch-22, a favorite of yours, something I still have to read.
I would definitely be open to reading that for sure.
Warlock, a favorite of mine that you still have to read.
Yeah.
Maybe some like classic stuff like some Dickens, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I wonder if Angels or Crying of Lot 49 would be too short, do you think, to do over like a 4-week span?
I mean, maybe,
Yeah.
Also, I don't think we have to limit ourselves to the 4 weeks.
Sure.
I think the math worked out pretty good on this one.
Yeah.
If, we pick something shorter, we can do a shorter
2 week or
2 week, or honestly, with some of these books that are short, could read it twice in the month.
Right.
The timeline of each book will be different. Certainly do have some longer books on here.
Yeah.
I do think, I had said something to you privately recently that I think, it would be worthwhile to do some more challenging books like Your Infinite Jests or Gravity's Rainbow, things like that, once we have, again, a handle on how everything's going to run.
Yep.
Books that certainly can be intimidating and are always helpful to have, a group of people you're reading with and can foster discussion and answer questions you might have, things like that. So I think once we, books like that will certainly be more than just a month.
Of course, if you're, listening to this after the 19th, it's not a super long book. So if you want to jump in halfway,
right,
get caught up, go for it.
Right.
I think 4 weeks for a kind of a normal length novel is a good amount of time, because you could read, some other thing that you're reading and maybe just read this once a day and stay on pace, or once a week, excuse me. I had joined a group read for Babel by R.F. Kuang. And I remember that they kept it pretty loose. It was just like, get to this point by this date, and then I think it was the halfway mark, and then like we'll finish it by this date. And I remember I was way behind on reading it.
Yeah.
And so like the day before, like the day of, we were supposed to like hop on this chat at like 7:00 at night, and I was like 200 pages behind. So I just like sat down, like hammered through it to get caught up. And I remember 7:00 rolls around, I like get on Instagram. I was like, are we doing like Zoom, or are we just like doing an Instagram chat? And literally everyone else in the group was like, oh, I haven't even like started the book yet. But even the person who was like running it was like, yeah, I'm only like 50 pages in. I was like, man, I could have been using this time so much more productively. I mean, it was a fine book. It was fine.
Yeah. I've seen some people that like organize group reads on Instagram, and they come up with like a very set schedule. Like, we're going to read this many pages this day. And that more power to those people. But like, I would get pretty overwhelmed trying to keep up with that schedule, or just coming up with that schedule would be a lot. So
yeah. And for me, it's just like, the tough thing about reading kind of more obscure books is that you don't always have people to talk to about them.
Right.
Which is a lot of the fun of reading. And so, my hope is that we can solve that small problem for some people.
I mean, I think if you do some basic math, the average like chapter length of this book comes out to like 10, 12 pages. So something, do a chapter a day or whatever.
Yeah. 20, 30 minutes, we'll get it done.
Yeah.
We have a ton of podcast episodes in the pipeline. Some stuff that we've recorded over the last month or so that I just haven't gotten out. Kind of wanted to build a backlog so we can stop having gaps in between releasing episodes. I would like to get one out once a week on average, usually on Wednesdays, but it doesn't always happen. So we're trying our best to be a real podcast here. But I heard a stat that it's like 95% of podcasts like never even make it to their 20th episode. Like, people just give up on it before it gets to that point.
Wow.
We're probably right around there.
Let's see. What are we at?
I think this is like maybe 16 or 17, not including the ones that we've already, not including the ones we've recorded but have not released.
So we have 18 videos in the Life on Books podcast playlist on the YouTube channel. This would be number 19, and we've got what? Three or four.
Four that are unreleased.
Sitting around, so.
Yeah, so we'll crack
Look at
that barrier.
We are better than average.
better than quite a few. Apparently, I think it was literally 95%. And we have some friends that are on their 400th episode.
Yeah.
And I think we've already eclipsed them in terms of number of listeners. The Christoph Koch interview has been very popular on YouTube. I haven't checked the stats on actual like streaming like Spotify, but that video has 4,000 views on YouTube, which is a lot for a small channel that and an hour and a half long video.
Yeah.
I think the average view time on it's like 25, 30 minutes, which isn't amazing statistically speaking, but it's like probably better than a lot of the stuff we put out.
Right.
And it we just got the notification officially yesterday. I saw that we'd hit the requirements, but we actually got the official notification from YouTube that we now qualify for the YouTube Partner Program, which was you have to have at least 1,000 subscribers and at least 3,000 hours of watch time in the last year for regular content, or for shorts, you have to have had, I think, 40 million views in the last year or something crazy like that.
Nuts.
Which, I mean, like for shorts, I mean, you could have a short that does like 2 million views in a couple days.
Right.
We're just not the type of channel that's going to do that.
Right.
Like, there's just not enough readers in the world, I don't think, for like for content to go like super viral like that on a regular basis. But it was cool that one video just pushed us over the edge. We were doing fine. We have like 2,300 subscribers, but I think we were pretty far off with the watch hours, and that one video pushed us over the edge. I think that one video alone already has like 1,500 watch hours.
Hell yeah.
So that's cool. And I'm going to do more of the book trivia type content. There's a lot going on right now on social media, I guess, algorithmically. So Instagram's been making a ton of announcements about changes to the algorithm. There's some stuff about you being able to get like an advanced tier of meta verified to there's rumors that that's going to help, boost your engagement and all this stuff. And it's interesting, I've never really been the type of person who like will blame, the algorithm hates me or anything, something like that. For me, it's just like, okay, if something didn't do well, like I just didn't do a good enough job like creating it. But I actually, for the first time, I'm like, okay, this isn't really necessarily my fault, because right at the turn of the year is when my Instagram for sure had exploded and really caught up to my TikTok, which was like way ahead in terms of views and followers and all that stuff. And all of a sudden my views on Instagram and on TikTok just like fell off a cliff basically. And it's interesting because, a lot of the stuff I'm posting will get 2,000 views, 3,000 views, but it'll have an exceptionally large amount of comments. You know what I mean? So it's clearly the people who are seeing it like it or are affected to the point where they want to say something about it. But everyone that saw the trivia videos were like, this is awesome. You have to do more of this. Like, I love this. And, but it had like, I think legit for the first 2 days on TikTok, it had like 52 views. And it's just like, well, that has nothing to do with the content being bad. Like, you guys literally just, for whatever reason, just didn't show it to anybody.
Yeah.
But more of that's coming, which I'm really excited about. And I actually kind of like...
I think I'm going to start donning disguises so that you can quiz me and then end up having to buy all my books.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I came up with a bunch of questions on my own, but I was like, I need a huge pool of questions to pull from. Just so I'm not asking the same questions over and over. And so I had ChatGPT like come up with 100 things. And I was like pretty impressed with myself, like reading the questions. Like, I know the answers to most of these questions, Right. And so, that was a lot of fun. I have some ideas. I would love to go down to like a park on a really nice day and like set up with a big tub of like free books.
Yeah.
And same thing, just like quiz random people. And if they get questions right, like give them a free book. So it was good. I had a good time doing it. If you guys have any questions that you think would make good trivia, let me know. ChatGPT definitely leaned really hard on who wrote this, who wrote that. And I would like to mix it up a little bit more. Like, one of the questions was, what book starts with "Call me Ishmael"?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. A famous first line. It was the best time, worst times. Like, what's that from? So I would really like to try to come up with a few hundred, maybe 1,000 different trivia questions. I can put them in different categories. Because I'm not going to like try to quiz like a romance reader on like sci-fi. You know what I mean? I would like to give people somewhat of a fair shot. And I also think I had told you off camera that I want to change the structure a little bit. So what I had done was like start with $5. You get it right. You can choose to take the $5 or go double or nothing, and go double or nothing, go double or nothing. And the problem with that is like you can have you can get 5 or 6 questions right, and then get to one question where you don't know, and then you just like threw the whole thing away.
Right.
So I think what I'll probably do is maybe ask people like 5 or 10 questions and be like, okay, so the maximum's like $50. Whatever percentage of these 10 questions you get right, I'll give you that percentage of $50 towards your purchase or something like that. So I don't know. I'm just making stuff up as I go along. So
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other news?
Yeah.
Housekeeping?
One more thing
Sure.
before we go. I just want to send a huge congratulations to friend of the program, Ed Park,
Oh, yes.
on being named a finalist for this year's Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah.
Really, really great to see. A very deserving novel and person.
Yep.
Huge accomplishment for him. Not to make his accomplishment about me, but it was pretty surreal. I think it was Monday or Tuesday when that was announced.
Yeah.
And I'm just like at work and taking a little break, saw it, post about it on Instagram, and kind of hit me like, we interviewed a Pulitzer Prize finalist. Like,
Yeah.
that was a very kind of cool moment, just being like this thing that I think we kind of started, I wouldn't say as a goof, but like just,
We don't know what we're doing.
yeah. And now we're like, we interviewed this very prestigious finalist for a very prestigious award. Like,
Yeah.
it's really cool.
It's a bummer he didn't win. Would have been even better for our clout. But yeah, no, he's certainly deserving of the nomination. He certainly would have deserved to win if he had.
Absolutely.
And what was really encouraging too was that I was kind of perusing some different forums and Reddit, and there was some threads about the Pulitzer Prize winners, and quite a few people in a few different places on the web were saying, "Oh, I think Ed should have won," or "I had read this book and it was amazing." And so it's cool to see that he's getting the recognition that he deserves. So if you haven't read Same Bed, Different Dreams, check it out. Definitely a unique book.
Yes.
Definitely also plays with the kind of structure a little bit and the formatting a little bit, but not in a gimmicky way, I would say.
No.
Yeah, just a really interesting and unique book. So congrats to Ed. Next time, just try a little harder so you can win. So then we can really say, we had a Pulitzer Prize winner on our show. Ed would really appreciate that.
Yeah. I don't know if it's been announced yet, but Escar David Johnson's Pay As You Go was, I believe, nominated for the New York Library Young Lions Award,
Oh, cool.
which is, I think, for like debut novels.
Yep. Also another very deserving author.
Absolutely. I think I've seen his name pop up in a few different nominations. So
Yeah.
congrats to him as well.
Yeah.
And congrats to us.
Congrats to us. And we will conclude this episode with that. Of course, all the books mentioned will be listed in the show notes wherever you're listening or watching. And we will see you next week.